So imagine this, you wake up one day and you start to lose consciousness. Your body feels fatigue and you have no idea what's going on. You feel in pain and you don't know what is happening. This is the story of Alex MacFarlane, a true story of inspiration and honestly awe-inspiring in the way in which he came to his realizations. Alex, following the pandemic, took some actions on that led to some long-term consequences, as you'll hear. As he was battling through some of the most challenging health experiences of his life, he was able to turn his mess into a message, now bringing forth a purpose to be able to support others that are in similar situations like himself. With a purpose way bigger than him, and with a mission and a drive to be able to bring value and healing to others, you're going to be left with a space of openness and realizations that we, right now, whatever we're being dealt with in challenges, we have an opportunity to turn into victories. This is Alex's story. Thank you for being here. We just did a beautiful breathing exercise as we brought ourselves to presence. And, it's beautiful when you can feel somebody's essence from afar. Alex is currently across the country, and I met this man for probably about 15 minutes to a half hour total at a Tony Robbins event, the last UPW out in Texas. And the moment that we connected, there was an immediate connection from me to him. I felt an immediate attraction to his essence as a human. And as that conversation unfolded, it was very clear that we were meant to connect. So I'm glad that you're here today. Welcome to the Awakening Bodies podcast. This is a podcast where we explore the realms of faith, self-mastery, and holistic health. Throughout the journey together, we'll shift our patterns and transform our lives. Today's conversation, awesome conversation for us to be sharing. We have Alex MacFarlane. Am I saying that correctly, Alex?
You are, yes.
Okay, cool. Like I just mentioned, I met him at the last UPW, and Alex has been through a journey that is quite like none other. As I was reading one of his powerful articles on a medium called From Suffering to Solace, which I'll put a link down below, I was brought to the presence of this man's power as he shares his journey, which he'll go deeper into. But he shares his journey of how he went through some health challenges that have led him into a deeper level of understanding of himself. And now is on the other side with a commitment to bring that level of support that he was able to muster to the population at large. So I'm really grateful because Alex, as an entrepreneur, as a writer, as a financial advisor, he's bringing in a lot of emphasis specifically on uniting the Zen and the Buddhist systems and Western ways of life as one, which in the world of today, I think could bring a different level of peace of mind, presence, and connection to each other as humans. Alex, thank you, brother, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Sebastian. Thank you for the intro. It's beautiful to experience your essence from afar and connect like this. And I can only imagine that this conversation will become an extension of how we met at that seminar and become an even greater moment that we have together.
Amen, brother. Amen. I'm a full faith that everyone I come across is in some sort of way somebody for me to meet in whatever fashion, whether it's for a 5-minute conversation. Some of my friends today I've met 5 years ago through just random walks on the street. So I don't doubt that we're in some sort of way building a long-term relationship to just this podcast and in the conversations we've had already.
I think we are. Yeah.
Amazing, brother. So let's dive into specifically how we met, because we met through a program that if you've never been to one of Tony Robbins' events, I mean, these are 15, 20,000 people in a room. You're talking 12 hours, 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So I think the first day we went to 1:32, depending on if people stayed for the firework or not. And this is high energy. There's a lot of deep work that is done, a lot of revelations and a lot of unfoldings that take place throughout the event. So Alex, for you, what pulled you into an event like that? That's not for just anybody.
There's always been a part of me that's wanted to push my comfort zone. And I think that's been around since I've been in my young 20s. And this type of event pushes your comfort zone to an extreme. And I think that a live event in particular, I've done different virtual events and other live events with other speakers, but a live event with Tony Robbins, I knew would have a certain type of connection for me to either meet people that I hadn't met before that would bring me a different type of belief and understanding in the world, and also give me a different type of connection to myself and push myself to a different and deeper level of understanding of who I really am. And so that was the reason I went.
And if anybody puts himself in that room, they know what they're walking into. Actually, that's not true. I actually met some people at that event who were there because of their employer sent them there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I actually ran into them a couple of times throughout. I was like, what's your experience? And they had no idea what they had gotten themselves into. And at one point, the woman was kind of jarred by the experience because, again, it's a lot. But I saw them again towards the end, and she was fired up, excited, never been through anything like that. For yourself, when did this personal development and transformation journey begin?
Ah, man, the big one began when I was 25, when I had a breakup. I think that was the moment where things really began to shift for me personally, where I got and tapped in. I tapped into more of my spiritual side of myself that had always been there, but I'd never really become friends with. And that was after I became alone. And that journey came from a place of deep darkness, similar to what we're talk about today, where I had to dig deep and find parts of myself that I hadn't met before. And these parts that I didn't met before, that I had not met before, became good friends of mine. And that was when I was 25, after a big, deep, dark heartbreak that changed my life forever for the better.
Interesting, number 25. And here you are having a, as they call it, quarter life crisis, some people call it.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's symbolic and prophetic right there.
Yeah.
So, it's so interesting because we as humans, we typically have to experience some sort of, not rock bottom, but it's typically in the moments of breaking where we find a new level of presence.
Yep.
And again, your story, as we dive deeper into it today, it's one of those that literally, they could easily make a movie out of it. Reading your article alone, the what you've been through and the way in which you've been able to overcome, it's truly inspirational. I'm really excited to dive into it and for you to share what specifically happened. So if you could share your journey and what took place that led you into what you're doing today.
Yeah. Thank you. So it was, I'm 36 right now. So I was 34 years old when this event happened. It was July 9th, 2021. And I had just received a COVID vaccine. During this time, if you can all remember, back in 2021, this is the summer of 2021, there was a lot of intensity in the world, a lot of things moving around energetically with specifically COVID, whether to take the vaccine, whether to not take the vaccine. There's a lot of people who were shaming people for not taking the vaccine. There's also a lot of people who were very scared to take the vaccine. And there's also a lot of people who were very, very scared of being sick. I had gotten sick with COVID twice or three times before that point, and it actually hadn't been very intense for me. I had been tired. I take care of my body, and I'm working out consistently, eating healthy, and it had been up to that point in my life. So for me, COVID hadn't affected me in a negative way that had been monumentous. It hadn't changed my life that much. And when I decided to take the first dose of the vaccine on July 9th, 2021, I was feeling really good. My body was feeling strong, and mentally I was feeling great. And I had waited a long enough period of time to feel that it would be safe to take the vaccine. And 10 days prior to taking the vaccine, I had been exposed to COVID. I had tested negative 5 days after exposure. And then 5 days later, I ended up taking the vaccine. And I took the vaccine, and 2 days after receiving the dose, I woke up with extreme pain in my neck and shoulders and unable to walk. And for the next 7 days, I had extreme migraines that moved up through my shoulder blades into the back of my skull, wrapped itself around my brain, and led to this deep pain that I'd never experienced before, these headaches that left me unable to sleep. And for the next days 7 through 14, I have no recollection of what happened. So the first 7 days after that dose, I wasn't able to sleep. Then days 7 through 14, I have no memory. And I was texting people and responding with emails and hopping on calls, but I have no recollection of what was happening. And it was terrifying when I came out of that state, because I looked back at my phone and I looked at my emails, and I realized that I had no memory of what I was doing. And I thought that I was beginning to lose my mind, and I didn't know what was happening to me. I went to the doctor a couple weeks after the dose, and the doctor said they didn't know what was going on, to keep on, moving forward. They gave me some supplements and just told me to keep on increasing my water and my electrolyte intake. And it got worse. For the next 3 months, I was bedridden. I wasn't able to walk more than 20 feet in a day. I was pretty much laying in my bed more often than not, just in deep muscle fatigue and deep pain in my body. And it was difficult for me to do anything, to get a glass of water, to eat. I needed to have my partner come and help me with food and water, and she would be there for me when I need to, put nutrients in my body. I eventually, after that 3 month period, got myself able to move a bit more, and I got myself able to move my body through a number of different types of techniques and supplements that we can talk about here in a little bit. But I was out of work for the next 3 months. So for the first 6 months after that dose, I was out of work. And then for the next year, from July 9th, 2021 to July 9th, or about August 2022, I was in and out of what I had called these spells. And the doctor had eventually diagnosed me with long COVID. And long COVID is when you have COVID in your system and it doesn't leave your body. It actually continues to exist inside your body, and your body continues to fight it. And I would wake up some days feeling okay and other days unable to walk. And that happened for a year straight. So I went through many different types of emotional pain, physical pain, spiritual pain along this process. And that's why I'm here today, to share about that and the movement of how I got through that for others to also understand.
So this is, this is for, well, as I was reading and hearing you share the journey again, it makes me think of how easy it is for us to allow any sort of setback to hold us back.
Yeah.
And it's easier that it's so much easier to just be in our own cocoon and stay in our own place. And it took you a while for you to step into this level of openness, which I acknowledge you for, because I imagine there was a lot of work to go through once you even got yourself back on your feet.
Definitely.
So for you to be here sharing your story openly like this for whoever knows who's going to listen, I acknowledge that level of courage, man. It's not easy to be vulnerable in the way in which you are already. And I'm just really grateful for that, because it's going to make a difference for somebody to be able to hear your journey and what you've been through so far.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, my purpose is just wanting to help one person. If this can reach somebody, one person that can hopefully help them, that's why I'm here. And I just hope that person can feel the level of love and care that exists for my heart, and can feel that and hopefully heal.
Huge. So let's explore, because you alluded to it before. And when we first spoke, you were mentioning that your dad's done a number of body work therapies on you. As I was reading the article, you mentioned that as well. What was able to give you that guideway? I know that's your sister started to send you some articles with other people that were dealing with similar issues. So it became something I was like, okay, there's more people dealing with this. I'm not the only one. I imagine that gave you a sense of peace in knowing that you're not the only one dealing with this.
Yeah.
What started to give you that sense of gateway to knowing, what should I try next?
I think first and foremost, I had to begin to understand how to become physically better. When you have any type of any type of illness that exists and it directly affects your physical body, anything else that you try to do with your life is pretty much non-existent. You're unable to focus on relationships, on work, on anything that you do personally for yourself. So I had to figure out, first and foremost, how to help my body. I had to change my diet. I had to go into a strict diet of greens, where I ate salad for breakfast. I had to take a lot of supplements, omega-3s, vitamin D, trace mineral drops, magnesium, different types of supplements that gave me energy to at least begin to step forward and understand the next ways for my body to heal. And that was the first and most important step, is understanding those supplements, the nutrients that I had to take. From that point, I moved into different types of bodywork techniques. Medical doctors still to this day have no answer for long COVID. And it's still a very difficult topic to talk about, because no one has a cure or a way to move through this. So I had to go through a bunch of experimentations, and I was essentially, patient zero at this time period, because my dad works at a large medical facility in Colorado. It's a national medical provider. He's a chiropractor who works alongside medical doctors. And he started finding a lot of patients who had these symptoms of COVID that would exist for longer than 3 months and become debilitated for years, for months, and now for years. And I was one of those patients, one of the first ones that came through. So he theorized for me that COVID might be attacking my diaphragm and my psoas because it restricts the blood flow to my brain, which causes the mind fog and which causes the muscle fatigue. So he started working on this part of my diaphragm, which is specifically my right side of my diaphragm. It's not the left, which is really interesting. And he has these 5 acupuncture pressure points that he pushes on. And they're almost like little beads that get tightened up, little beads of tightness that are existing inside the diaphragm that he works on. And he worked on those in those first 3 months, in those first 6 months, that began to loosen up the blood flow and allow myself to have more physical strength throughout my body. And then I also moved in my psoas. I did the same thing in my psoas too. So with the nutrients and with the body work, those two things very much so help my physical body able to move through the day-to-day process of able just to walk, move to get to the grocery store, do things for myself that I normally couldn't, or I hadn't been able to do previously and had normally been able to do effortlessly. So those two things in particular were really, really important for me.
Oh man, you said you mentioned something so key, and it's you also say it in your article. I'm actually took a note of it. Passionately love your body, your mind, and your connection with others. Yeah. Someday they'll leave, and in their absence, you'll crave what you once had. Yeah. I think for us, man, we're so quick to forget and take for granted what is right there in our health. It's our health. It's like, I can't remember who said it, but something along the lines of, the person that is sick only has one wish, and it's to get better.
Yeah.
When you were going through those bead likes and they were, was it painful at touch? Like, did you feel them like release?
Very painful. Very painful to touch. Yeah. It was almost like, it was like if you have neck pain, for example. I think many people can experience or relate to this, like a deep part of pain in your muscles and your neck. If you twist your neck a certain way, that's what it felt like in my diaphragm. So like just a touch to my diaphragm felt like I had like sprained my neck or sprained my diaphragm, and it felt very painful to touch. And I had to breathe through it, and it would hurt quite a bit. And he would touch it very, very softly, and touch it in ways that would be like very, like I'm barely touching right now in between my thumb and my forehead, my thumb and my index finger, very softly. But he would touch it not too hard, and that would be painful on my body. And I had no idea how much that had affected my body, my diaphragm, just by that little touch. And slowly but surely, he started moving more and more physical pressure into it as the months moved on, and that began to loosen it up more and more.
So was it like blood flow beginning to, like starting to flow again, which...
Exactly. Yep. It loosened up the blood flow. So it constricted my lungs to where blood wasn't pumping through to my brain and also moving through my rest of my body. And it also connected my legs too, my psoas, which is near my hip. And as you said, once I started feeling that pressure relieve, I started feeling like I could at least begin to live. I didn't want to live for a while. I felt that I just wasn't going to make it. And, that part of me that had always been taking my health for granted, very much so became aligned with my whole being. I realized that my health I had been taking for granted, my physical body I had been taking for granted. And I didn't realize the full extent of it until I got sick.
Most of us do, man. Most of us do. It makes me think of, in the science of yoga, the emphasis on the body, and how much the body is the gateway to stored emotions, to past trauma, to just memories that maybe we don't even are aware of.
Yeah.
As you were coming and breaking through the physical limitations, you mentioned already that there's a couple of times, right, they didn't know if you're going to make it. What kept you, like, where did that energy and where did that drive come from to continue to move forward as the physical pain was so challenging?
Man, there were days where I didn't think I would make it, to be honest. And there were days where I wanted to end it. I think what made me keep wanting to move forward were a couple of deep spiritual experiences that I had that allowed me to know that I was being watched over. And we can go into a couple of those if you'd like. But there were times where I felt very, very alone. The most difficult part of this process was not having any roadmap from the medical community on how to get better, not having anybody understand what was happening to me, not having anyone that I could find that was also experiencing what I was experiencing. So I felt this deep sense of lostness. I didn't know if anyone else was experiencing this. I didn't know if this was happening to other people in the world. I was in my own place, in my own pain. And I needed to find a couple of things. I needed to find people, first of all, that also were experiencing what I was experiencing. I also needed to find people that could listen to me and not doubt what I was experiencing. And then also find people who could just be there for me in my pain. And first and foremost, I had to be there for myself in my pain in order for those things to happen. So the first thing I had to do was just be there and love myself the best way I could to open up those three doors.
Man, that level of self awareness, that level of forgiveness. Lord and I was having a podcast conversation the other day, and we're talking about how in school they teach all these different subjects. And actually, we're talking about sex education when this came up, and we're wondering about what it would do to kids if they were to learn some self-education, actually understand themselves, their emotions, their feelings, forgiveness, understanding, compassion, enthusiasm, sympathy, like all of these things. Did you take up any practices that allowed you to step into that level of self-forgiveness?
Yeah, so I've been meditating for a long period of time since I was 25. So I got deep into meditation on that 25th day, or that day of the 25th period of time when I was going through that breakup. And since that point, I've been meditating deeply. I couldn't meditate because I was in so much pain. Like sitting up straight was difficult for me to do. So I had to find through laying down how to move through my emotions. And I had never fully done that before. And one of the techniques that began to do that for me was a technique that they call in therapy internal family systems. It's
Yes.
a therapy technique that begins to work on parts of yourself that exists from your past. And it was my mom actually who brought into my world. She's a healer and a healthcare practitioner. And I had also, done some therapy work with IFS before. But this technique was specific where I couldn't meditate, which is the normal process of how I'd move through difficult emotions. So I had to go deep into my darkness and parts of myself that were protecting me from experiencing the pain that I was in that existed from my past, from my little boy, Alex, the child that was inside of me, that was protecting me, and experiences that I had experienced before in my past that I didn't know that were there. So I had to dig deep into my past experiences, in particular, using different types of techniques from IFS that allowed me to heal and move forward with the day.
Man, we're so quick to turn to distractions, to not look at that cave. We don't realize that cave actually holds the treasure. As you were going through, I mean, here you are, the technique or the modality or the practice that used to bring you peace and solace, now you can't even do. You start to get into new practices through IFS, and it sounds like you're doing some inner work as well with inner child and touching back into maybe some past experiences that were still there.
Yeah.
When did you start to? When were you able to see yourself getting back into your practice of meditation?
It's funny. One of the most important things I had to do for myself was not put pressure in myself to heal. I think what happens to many of us with chronic illness is we want to get better at a rate that's faster than our body wants us to. And there's more lessons, there's more things that we have to move through. There's a lot more health that we have to figure out. And I wanted to just get it done with. I was like, I'm going to do this. Like I can be type A sometimes where I'm just like, I'm going to get this done. It's going to happen. God damn it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it work. And in this case, I couldn't do that. I had to be very, very slow and deliberate with how I was healing. And through meditation and IFS, there were days where, or through IFS in particular, where I didn't want to do the IFS work. I would do it. It would lead to feelings of, feeling better. Then there were other days where I had to be very at peace with doing nothing. With being at peace while doing nothing is an art where you can just be at the house, either just sitting down, looking at a flower, could be watching a TV show, it could be doing anything. It doesn't have to necessarily be numbiness in the traditional sense that we have, but moving your mind into a place of allowing yourself to be at peace with doing nothing. And that became an art form for me to really begin to understand. And I think it's from Naval, the writer, that brings that thought process into our psyche. But through the art of doing nothing and being okay with doing nothing is when I began to begin to get better at stepping slowly into meditation, because I was pressuring myself into wanting to meditate, into wanting to get back to where I was. And the moment I let go of that attachment, the moment I let go of that pressure, it began much easier for me to meditate. And it all made so much sense in hindsight. I'm like, oh boy, of course, the attachment to my meditation, the attachment to my peace is the barrier to my peace. And I really had to dig deep with that one, because it was an interesting thought process. I was attached to peace, and I had to let that go.
Yeah, it's so many people have that same. And when I first started meditating, it was a very similar experience of like, I need to quiet my mind. I need to, okay, mind, stop talking. This needs to stop. And then I'm caught up in this loop now of like trying to stop the mind from thinking, when that's what the mind is meant for.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they get caught up in trying to still the mind. And in trying to still the mind, they're like trying to let go. And then they're letting go of letting go. And they're letting go of letting go of letting go. And it's like, no, breathe. Bring yourself to a state of presence through breath, through practice. One of the things that my mentors always taught me, especially in the meditation side, is just look at it like running water. Look at it like clouds. Look at it like trees swaying in the wind, like some sort of motion. For me personally with nature, I see you got nature in the background. I got nature in my background. Nature just grounds me so much. It always just brings me to this space of realizing that I'm just a tiny little speck with a giant potential, but I'm still a tiny little speck. And in that breath, it's like a reminder, a fine tune, a literally connection to something that is beyond any understanding. Like energy can never be destroyed nor created. I can tap into that whenever, and the breath is my access. Forgetting to breathe, we as humans, we don't realize that it's like we're holding off the lifeblood, the lifeline. Excuse me. It's like in your example, very similar. It's like you got the vessels contracting, well, not being able to pump all the blood through. You had a physical reaction. For us, not breathing is like we're hyperventilating. We're running from a tiger, yet there's nothing behind us. We're not being chased by anything.
Yeah.
But our nervous system is in this space of fight or flight, thinking that it is running from something.
That's it. Yeah, that's it, man. Yeah. And that's essentially what happened. It's like my over response of my nervous system was constantly attacking my body. My parasympathetic nervous system and my sympathetic nervous system, my vagus nerve was pushing my body into a state of fight or flight consistently every single day. And I had to learn how to unwind all of that.
And okay, so breathing, meditating, letting, and like all of this was avenues for you to do so. Anything else that supported you in alleviating that pain or that stress or that pressure?
Yep. I think, I called it the mental health days. What were the days that I would do nothing, finding peace for myself and just being okay with not doing anything, not having any pressure of any type of task was really essential in the beginning part of my process. And alleviating the idea that I needed to do something in order to get to where I wanted to go was essential. And from that point, then meditation and then IFS became very, very much more grounded in my healing process. Breath work became much more grounded. Just walking around the block, walking and noticing nature was just, as you said, so grounding. And one part of my existence that became very, very profound for me was just being in the sunlight and making sure that my body got to experience the day and just to see flowers, see the trees blowing in the wind, and also to have sunlight on my skin. And so, those four things in particular allowed me to pave the road towards my body strengthening.
So, okay, so we have the body now starting to get a sense of peace. The mind is also getting a space of regulation. The spirit's also kicking up. Reading the article you were sharing, how at some point in time, like you kind of lost that connection. Your mom was a big support on that. You also referenced it earlier that you had some spiritual experiences that had that come back online. would you be open to sharing one or two or whatever you feel pulled to share that brought that connection back on into place?
Sure. Yeah. There was a period that I was in deep depression. I was experiencing feelings of deep depression. And this was in the winter of 2022. So it was about 7 months after I got sick. And I still hadn't found anybody who had experienced what I'd experienced yet. I didn't know that there were people that had long COVID. Long COVID still was very new, and still not many people know about it today. There's about 20 million Americans who have it. And even, now many people still don't know about it. But during that time period, I was deep in lostness of finding this feeling of aloneness that I had never felt before. And I had felt fine being alone in my past, but I had felt different at this time period of my life. And I didn't know if I was meant to live in this body anymore. And I thought that my body was going to continue to get worse. Mentally, I was struggling in a deep, deep way. And then one day I, sat down to meditate after screaming in a pillow. I was screaming so loudly, crying, and I just collapsed on the floor. I sat up and meditated. And, I'd done this, a number of times before, but this one felt pretty painful. There's something about this day that was really, really painful. And I sat up. I was like, well, man, I'm going to sit down and meditate, and we'll see what happens. And if things don't work out, then I'm okay to go. And I sit down in meditation. And as I'm closing my eyes, I breathe and start beginning my process of moving through the feelings of my body. I can feel the pain in my legs and my knees, my head, my shoulders, and then in my heart, my muscles, and my diaphragm. And then within maybe 5 minutes, I start having psychedelic experience where I begin to move through this incredibly detailed light that is shining all around me. So I first step into almost as if I'm flying through the universe with stars around me and different types of light shining around my being. I'm out of my body. I'm experiencing out of body experience. I'm moving through this dimension or wherever dimension I'm in a way that felt like I was in a psychedelic experience on ayahuasca, on LSD, psilocybin. And I was just in a period of just knowing that this was supposed to be for me. I didn't know why this was happening, but I felt conscious of while this was happening. And while I was going through this feeling, a deep sense of peace came over me. And there were 3 things that happened after that point. The first was I was presented with a figure. A figure came towards me, and I couldn't see this figure's face. It was a beautiful blue aura around this figure. And it had this necklace. This necklace was made of all these gems, like these different types of emeralds and rubies and diamonds. And I couldn't see the face of this being, but he handed me this necklace. A part of me felt that I shouldn't trust this being or whatever this was because I couldn't see its face. And so I denied this necklace that he was about to place around my neck. And as I denied the necklace, I flew past him into this place where all of a sudden I saw these spiritual guides come at me. I saw Jesus, I saw Buddha, I saw Muhammad. I saw all of these guides come and give me high fives as I'm blasting past them, giving them high fives from all these different religions, moving forward and like into this spaciousness. And I'm realizing that was a test. I was like, okay, I did something right. I must have, passed forward knowing that I need to be able to see who I'm interacting with in order for myself to move through this next process. Then as I move through these spiritual masters and give them, my high fives, I go into this place where I'm underground and I start rising up through the ground. And I'm rising up through the ground and I enter into a place where I'm surrounded, or not surrounded, but I'm in a circle with all of these people in white robes. All of these people are in white robes. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing that no one is acknowledging me necessarily, but they all know I'm there. They're all let their head down. They're all in their white robes. And they just put their hand to the two people next to me, put their hands out, and I put my hands into theirs. We all hold hands together, and we just acknowledge that they were there together. And I feel this deep connection immediately to these people, these beings, masters, whatever they are, that they're there with me. And that connection became very profound. And then as I'm sitting there, they all just, don't look at me. Just this is an acknowledgement that I'm there, just by holding the hands. And then I move forward into my spatial, flying around, and I come back in my body, open my eyes, and I'm back into my state, into my body. And I start bursting into tears. And then, I just started crumpling on the ground and just feeling the immensity of that moment and what I had gone through. So I immediately started journaling it, and I have a whole journal entry about that.
Wow. Okay, just to make sure that we didn't lose anybody on that ride, there was no substances used throughout that.
No substances used. No.
No, that was just you about to get into your practice, and then Spirit was like, okay, let's take you deeper.
Yep. That was the day where I thought about killing myself.
Oh, that's what you said, that if you got it.
Yep. That was the day where I was very close to wanting to end my life. Yeah. And it was such deep pain, and that whatever type of, person, being, entity, universe, God that was looking out for me, that was it, man. And that was, from that point, I was like, holy shit, like this is something that I had never fully experienced before. I know that there's something out there that's looking out for me, and it's something out there that's looking out for other people too. And I felt it with my whole being.
Man, this is for some of us logical people out there that are right now trying to figure out what that could have been, or trying to describe it or explain it. This is one of those experiences that you can't describe, you can't explain. This is one of those experiences that Alex just did an amazing job at painting the picture of what it was like. But if you're trying to figure out what that was, this is an invitation to just let go of the rational mind. There is a veil that's very thin, and there is a deeper sense of life than just this physical reality. If you want to look at it from a logical context, science now shows that the literal things that we're seeing right now, my hand, this mouse, this water, is all literally made of the same exact molecules. And that is not philosophy. That is not any sort of idea. That is science. And that shows that there's a much deeper truth than we could ever possibly fathom. There's a quick story. There's in the Old Testament, there's the story when Job is talking to God and asking him why he's bringing him at such depths. And his whole family had just died. His house was taken away. He's covered in boils. And he's asking him why. And God tells Job, that question's too big for you. Like, go ask a smaller question. Your brain literally can't grasp that bigness, the vastness of that question.
Yeah.
So if you're caught up in this logical, like, what is that thing? He must have been on something, whatever's going through your mind, if it still is, just explore what would it look like if I were to step out of that having to know. Especially now in 2024, we're living through times where what we thought was what was true at one point, we realize it's not necessarily truth. We realize that just because we're shown something consistently doesn't mean that it has to be the reality. We start to realize that what's in here is much more powerful than what's out here. We realize that the space between us is much more palpable than this glass that's holding in this water.
Yes.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you come back from that experience. You're now in this deep sense of, I would imagine, just emotions from all over the place. Was that a turning point in which things started to look up, or what happened from there?
Yeah, that was one of the big turning points. That was the first point, the time in my illness that I felt like there was someone outside of my community and outside of the people around me that was looking out for me, which is really different than just having the people around me. They cared for me, but they didn't understand. I felt like this understood. This, whatever it was, understood and also was there with me through the pain. And, I kept moving forward, feeling physical pain after that point. This wasn't the end of it. This wasn't just like, okay, now I'm better, mentally, physically better. I still experienced feelings of darkness and feelings of sadness. And what finally really solidified it for me was the movement of my body with another spiritual moment I had. And this happened near a river. This was another day where I was experiencing deep physical pain. So this other day that I explained a couple minutes ago was emotional pain, the emotional pain of just unable to want to live. This next day that I experienced, which was about a month later, was physical pain. And this is month 8. I had been doing the body work, taking the nutrition, changing my diet. I had done so many things for my body that I was so certain that I could get better, but I wasn't. That I was in this deep physical pain. My mental pain had, alleviated it a bit, but my physical pain was still very much there. And so I went up to where I grew up in Evergreen, Colorado, and I went to this river and journaled, thinking that I could try to find, some solace near water. And as I journaled, I could barely write. My fingers were experiencing like arthritic pain, and I felt this deep pain in my fingers. So, I got very frustrated and I was like, screw it. I'm going to go back home. I'm going to watch TV. And, I drove to where it's about a 30-minute drive from where I live in Denver to where I was at that moment. And it was very difficult for me to even drive. But I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to walk back to the car and I'm going to go back to my house and watch TV. Screw it. As I walk back to my car and I'm in this park, I pass this river, I look to my left and I see a labyrinth. And this labyrinth is made of crystals and stones. And the labyrinth, if you're not familiar with it, is a pathway that circles around each other, circles around in a big circle. And you walk through a certain type of path in order to get to the center of this labyrinth. And you do it through meditation. And a lot of times you experience breath work through walking through the labyrinth. You experience meditation through walking the labyrinth. And I walked up to this labyrinth and my body was aching incredibly so. And I felt, this voice say to me, walk the labyrinth. It wasn't my voice. It was something else that had come from outside of me. So I began to put one foot after the other and begin to enter into this labyrinth. And my knees and my feet were aching very much so. I ended up walking slowly but surely into this labyrinth. And I said, you know what? I don't want to walk this labyrinth. I'm not going to do this. This is stupid. I feel super sick. I feel very physically ill. I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm just going to go to the center of the labyrinth and get this done with. Center of the labyrinth is about a 20-minute walk if you walk around the entire circle, but I could walk over the stones and just walk directly to the center. But I decided at that moment I heard a voice again, walk the labyrinth, walk the labyrinth. So I walk the labyrinth as I'm supposed to, slowly but surely. And I keep pushing myself and it's in my mind. I'm like, okay, something's telling me to do this. I had this experience before. I know someone's watching out for me. I'm going to listen to this voice. And I kept telling myself, my own voice, I was saying one foot after the other, one foot after the other. As I'm putting one foot after the other, one foot after the other, I start feeling momentum pick up. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And I start feeling this energy begin to take over me, an energy that I hadn't felt that day before. I was barely able to, move my fingers from journaling. I start walking, moving through the labyrinth, and all of a sudden, I can do this, one foot after the other, one foot after the other. I get to the center of the labyrinth, and right before I get to the center, I'm like, oh my gosh, I did this. God, thank you so much. I did this. And I walk into the center and I just crumple in joy. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I did this. I believed in myself enough to keep on moving forward, to keep on walking. And the parable immediately hit me. I'm like, oh, this is it. This is the journey of my illness. I'm supposed to put one foot after the other. And if I listen to that deep part of me or that voice that tells me to keep on moving forward, I can get through this. So that strength became very, very clear. And then cementing it. As I stand up and look outside towards the river, I look to my left and there's this church with a huge cross beaming at me in the sunlight. And I just start crying immensely, man. And right again, I'm just like, there's another sign. I'm being watched over. I did another, just a check mark on this list of just these things that I just know that I've been watched over. And I had just done something that I didn't think I could do before, but it pushed my body to continue down the path of one foot after the other, keep on moving forward. And then I look to my left and I see a cross And then, Jesus fills me up with love. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we are again, man. Yeah.
Oh man, I can't help but just get present to. There's so much beauty in this, because here we are, and forget the church as an institution, forget the church as the building, and forget the church as like that, because that's not what the church is. The church in the actual terms of what Jesus talked about is this. Like, this is church. This human to human relationship where we're feeling each other, connecting with each other, loving, forgiving each other. That's church, not the building, not the institution. So here you are, you're having this deep revelation with yourself, this deep parable of just keep moving forward. Listen to that deep voice, which again, I think for especially us as men, like, that's very illogical. I'm with you, man. I'm sometimes very type A. Like, there's things that I need to do that I need to get done, and if I don't get them done, I'm a bad man. It's like, that is not, it's not who God created me to be. Yeah. But again, I'm human. And here you are, you're listening to this deep voice that's already prompted you and directed you and led you towards something magical. And here you are, you experience it again, to look up and see this beautiful symbol of peace, forgiveness.
Yes. Yes, and I don't relate to, I'm not necessarily Catholic or Christian. I've focused much of my time is on Zen Buddhist techniques. But I've begun to accept, so much religion, so much beauty of the path of these masters, of these teachings, because they're all are similar in the essence of what they teach. Fully. That's the point of all of it.
And they do. And that's the thing. It's this is the beautiful part about when someone really taps into who they are, and, a belief, when someone has to prove a belief, I always ask, do you really believe it? Because if you really believe a belief, then it doesn't matter if somebody else next to you believes it or not. It's free will. We were given that. We could easily choose to look at the landscape on the outside of the window. We can choose to see the speck on the window. It's up to us to choose. But at the end of the day, to what you're pointing to, they all speak the same thing.
Yes.
They're all pointing towards a very similar path, and it's just a human language, the different ways in which things are said, that I'm right, you're wrong, that creates this.
Yes.
It's not what it's all about.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So then here you are, you're in this deep space again, and is this like that's another turning point now? You had the emotional breakthrough, now it's a physical breakthrough. I would imagine there's also some sort of spiritual beginning to, probably throughout this whole journey, that spiritual has been fed the whole time.
Yeah. This one was the physical, spiritual, and mental all combining together. And the physical, once I began to really believe in my physical body, that I could do things that I thought I couldn't do beforehand, then I started believing in my confidence and my self-worth. And then it changed a lot of things for me. That's when I started finding out about other people in communities that were also experiencing this. And I moved forward into alchemizing and started writing. I was journaling this whole period of time. But then I started thinking about, how can I turn my pain into purpose? How can I give this strength that I was experiencing to someone else? And it took me another number of months to get there. And it was through Dean Graciosi and Ed Milet, a podcast right before a Tony Robbins event, that really triggered it all in.
Okay, so perfect segue into what the next vision is for you, because you took a mess and you turned it into a message. You took a pain and turned it into an opportunity for growth for other people. Share with our community what it is that you're looking to build and create now that you have gotten yourself to this transformed space, and you see that there's 20 million Americans alone, 1 out of 3 in America, which is lowballing it according to the article. Yeah. What's the next vision for yourself?
Yeah, right now it's beginning. It's creating a community of people who are experiencing any type of long COVID illness, and also types of chronic illness, that can find purpose and connection with people who understand. And that's my dream and my vision right now. And what I'm building is bringing people together who have different types of pain that exists from long COVID, in particular, mental pain. I focus on long COVID because that's my pathway, but I'm finding also a lot of people with chronic illnesses that are also coming towards me with me as well, because it's all a similar type of pathway to move forward with. The nutrients and the physical parts are different, but the mental and the spiritual are all very much the same. And so what I'm building now and creating is a unity for people to come together, where I share some of these stories, some of these types of wisdoms that I have learned from myself, from the different types of teachers that I've worked with, giving them to the people that I am working with, so they can share with their family, with their community, with their loved ones, and hopefully spread this message outward and change the world.
Amen, my man. Amen. It's touching to see this commitment. And again, I think that in the world of today, we get so caught up in maybe looking at other people that are doing it so big, but we don't realize that one ripple creates a massive wave eventually over time with enough momentum.
Yeah.
So I acknowledge you for stepping into this fully. How can people that are listening in, how can they become a part of the community? I personally know a friend right now who has been working through MS, and she's been really just bringing herself to transforming it. And I would imagine that some of what you've been through could probably be a support to her. If she were to want to in some sort of way connect with you, how could she do so?
Sure. Yep. I have an article that I've written that's about 10 minutes. I have a masterclass video program that goes through the different processes that I went through that talks a lot about the different nutrients, the different mindset techniques I've worked with, and then also the spiritual practices. And then I also have a book that's an ebook that's free for download that people can access. Within all of those three things, I have a Facebook community that I'll give a link to. And I also have my Instagram handle as well that I'll give a link to also. And those are going to be the best ways to get in touch with me. I think, if you have any type of physical chronic illness or you are specifically experiencing long COVID, reading this book, you can tap into different parts of what you need to heal. You can go through the different appendixes and find out exactly how I healed myself through the different types of modalities I chose and different types of nutrients and supplements I used. You can also just go into the article and realize that you're not alone, and you can find other people in other communities that aren't mine that can help you. So both of those two pathways, I hope, can bring light to people who are experiencing pain in any type of chronic illness or specifically long COVID.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. Yeah, and I'll definitely add the links to this. I found through the article, it took me to your course, which, I mean, just looking at it, you're given such incredible value for anybody. And this is where I think, like, for anybody listening, if you're looking to just continue to grow in your own personal self, like you don't have to be at this breaking point physically or mentally or emotionally. We can all use support. I think especially now we're realizing that you see somebody like Simone Biles that is literally about to take off on one of her most famous or one of her highest points of her career. And she says, nope, I'm walking away. My mental health is much more important than this. This happened three and a half, 4 years ago. We're realizing that there's nothing wrong with things not being how you want them to be. It's okay. You're actually giving somebody else the courage to step out and seek support that may be afraid to do it for themselves because of what other people will think, of what their friends would say, and even maybe that personal self-guilt that we're so good at carrying as humans. But Alex's program is really packed with the ability for you to explore deeper levels of yourself, to rebuild your body, to manage your mind, to continue to rebuild your faith and your confidence within yourself. So, man, so much gratitude for you. So much gratitude for the journey that you've been through and for now stepping forth, putting together the time and the effort to put everything that you've been through in a packaged way for somebody to learn and somebody to continue to also develop their well-being. Is there anything that you would like support with from myself and from the community that's out there listening?
If there's anyone that you know that might be experiencing pain as it exists in the realm of chronic illness or long COVID, can share this podcast, share my article, let them know that they're not alone, give them a hug and let them know that they're not alone. If this can help one person, that's all my mission is for. I just want something to give, some type of information to give somebody solace, to know that they can keep on moving forward, put that foot after the other, knowing that there's other people out there that care for them and deeply love them. And there's also something bigger than all of us that's doing the same, deeply loving them from afar.
Beautiful, man. I'm sure that somebody out there listening will find value, and I'll do my part as well to see who's out there that could use some support with what you're doing.
Thank you.
Of course, man. So I always end the conversations with one question. And the question is, what would you like to be acknowledged for?
I like to be acknowledged for the vulnerability that I share. I think it's important to be vulnerable. And I think feeling acknowledgement for vulnerability allows me to continue to be vulnerable and give strength to others who also should be able to feel strength with sharing their vulnerability.
Yeah, man, it takes courage. It takes courage, and especially as a man, to step in and be open, to share one's journey, to let oneself be seen, to actually let people in. Thank you. I see you fully. I hear you fully. I feel you fully. Not just now, but the first time we've met. I'm so glad to have connected with you. I'm so glad for experiences like Tony Robbins, and so glad for you to have said yes to that. And for myself too, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
Yeah.
I'm thankful, man. I'm thankful for the opportunity to connect with you at this deep level. I'm so excited to continue to see and follow the journey. The Instagram handle, you can send it over via text, and I'll also tag it down below, and just continue to be a part of what you're doing, man. My biggest respects, my biggest love to you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. So much love and respect to you. I honor you and acknowledge you for what you're doing and the light that you're bringing to the world. And I wouldn't be here in the seat right now speaking on my behalf if it wasn't for you. So, the acknowledgement that you feel for yourself and that I see for you, I hope you feel, man. I hope you understand, the beauty that you're creating and the love that you're sharing with the world.
I received that, brother. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
Awesome, bro. We'll see each other soon.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to follow, like, and subscribe to stay updated on future episodes. And we would love to know how you enjoyed today's episode by leaving us a review. We look forward to continuing this journey of self-discovery and connection with you, and we'll see you on the next episode. Much love.